Any immigrant is going to tell you. Any immigrant, doesn't matter from what walk of life, from India, Africa, Pakistan, anywhere in the Caribbean, we will tell you we have one goal: to move forward so that the generation behind us is better than we are. And
Uh-huh.
so because of that, sometimes we do not understand the privilege that we are working with, and we will step on top of the people who created the framework for us in order for us to move forward. Any immigrant who's honest is going to tell you that.
Hello, and welcome to Revolutionary Leadership, the bi-weekly podcast that shines a spotlight on the visionary leadership approaches Black women have cultivated for generations, yet are too often overlooked. I'm Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown, a culture architect, racial equity strategist, and scholar of organizational change. For more than 20 years, I have helped leaders, organizations, and communities reimagine what's possible when equity and authenticity guide the way. Each episode will dive deep into conversations that illuminate how Black women integrate community care, radical self-prioritization, and collective capacity building into transformative leadership practices. Together, we'll expand what leadership can look like and what liberation through leadership truly means. Because this is where Black women's stories become tomorrow's blueprints. Welcome back to Revolutionary Leadership, where Black women's stories become tomorrow's blueprint. This episode explores the invisible frameworks that shape how we lead, how we are seen, how we are heard, and how we reclaim ourselves in spaces that were never built to hold our fullness. I want to start with a question. What does it mean to be recognized as a leader when the system doing the recognizing was not designed with you in mind? Not your accent, not your heritage, not your particular relationship to the institutions you navigated. What happens when the markers of your credibility look different from the ones the room was built to reward? I have been sitting with this question for a long time. In my research and my consulting practice, and the conversations I've had with women across industries, across the diaspora, and what I keep coming back to is this. Black women have always had to build leadership infrastructure that the systems around them did not provide. The frameworks were never missing. The recognition was. Today's conversation lives at that intersection of identity, accountability, and what I call architecture of success. How we construct the structures that hold us when the institutions around us cannot or will not. In episode 6, Stephanie Medina took us inside the first chair, what political intelligence actually requires when you are navigating traditional institutions with your full self. In episode 8, Dr. Zakiya Newland gave us a framework for peace and leadership strategy, returning to yourself as rest, but as architecture. Today's conversation extends both of those threads into a place where they have not yet gone, the diaspora. What we bring from the cultures that shape us, what we owe each other across difference, and what happens when writing or leading becomes the thing that brings you home to yourself. We are joined today by a leader who has navigated every rung of the American higher education ladder without ever letting the system flatten her into something smaller than she is. Dr. Sue, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
My guest today is Dr. Suzanne Morrison-Williams, known to everyone who knows her as Dr. Sue. She is a Jamaican-born executive leader who has navigated every level of our higher education landscape, from faculty member to vice provost, before bringing all that full depth of her experience to her current role as Chief Academic Officer at LEARN, the Library Information and Resource Network. a nonprofit consortium serving over 350 educational institutions. Dr. Sue is a certified success coach, not a life coach. She will tell you exactly why that distinction matters. She is the author of Boss Ladyship, Color Me, #BossLady, a honest, colloquial, and deeply personal framework for Black women navigating leadership in traditional spaces. And she is the co-founder of Sisters Breaking Glass Together Incorporated, a nonprofit focused on women's advancement. She holds a doctorate in organizational leadership, and she has been building frameworks for decades, long before anyone gave them a name. Dr. Sue, I am so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. Although the decades, that puts a number on me.
Yes. And it looks good on you, ma'am.
Oh, but yes, I'm so looking forward to having this conversation. You and I have had some prior conversations which were
Yeah.
awesome. I'm
Yes.
really looking forward to where we go today.
Yes. Before we go any further, I ask every single guest this question. What are you drinking as we warm up to have this conversation?
Some fortified coffee, because when you are a lady of a certain age, there are things that you need, right? So my coffee has collagen, lion's mane, and I can never remember the name of the herb that I put in there for high cholesterol, but I do that and then I put that into my coffee. So I start my morning off with like a fortified coffee. So that I can get some nutrients along with the caffeine to get the juggernaut started.
I am just having some plain old chai tea fortified with honey. And I'm going to, given that I am a particular age as well, I'm going to have to look into fortifying my tea,
Mhm.
because otherwise I'm likely missing some stuff that my body
I
actually
am
really
happy to
needs.
send you the links.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to receive them.
Yes.
So, okay, before we go deep, I do something with every guest, 3 rapid fire questions. First instinct only, no long answers yet, because we
Mhm.
are setting the stage. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you call yourself a success coach, not a life coach. What is the one thing that women must be willing to do before she sits down with you?
Be
Mm,
brutally honest with yourself.
I love it. Honesty is the first step, right? You wrote Boss Ladyship to save yourself. What is one truth you uncovered in that process that genuinely surprised you?
The amount of stereotypes and biases that I held.
Oh, personally held
Mhm.
stereotypes and biases. We're going to get into that. Ooh, I love it. What is one thing from your Jamaican upbringing that you once tried to professionalize and now embrace as a leadership superpower?
The fact that I am bicultural, the fact that I
Mm.
understand the diaspora in a ways sometimes that African Americans don't, because I've been part of that diaspora, which gave rise to my stereotypes and prejudice.
Ah, I
So that
love it.
understanding fuels a lot of what my leadership philosophy is.
I want to start at the beginning, not the beginning of Boss Ladyship as a book, the beginning of Boss Ladyship as a survival act, because what you told me about why you wrote it has stayed with me. You were navigating a 19-year divorce, a career transition, COVID, and a world that was asking you to be everything to everyone. And you sat down and wrote, not to publish something, not to establish a platform. You wrote because writing was the only thing that brought you back to yourself. Please tell us about that.
My girlfriend realized I was about to go through a divorce, and she had been through a divorce with 2 young children. She's also Jamaican, she's also an educator, also had a doctorate, and I think she saw that I was beginning to lose touch with who I was. I think she saw it and stepped in, and she goes, "I have a little protege who's doing a seminar, and I wanna take you." And so I went to that seminar,
Mhm.
and it was a bunch of so I was at the time, I was almost 50. And
Mhm.
the seminar was full of 35-year-old women, and I'm looking at these women going, "I'm not really understanding why you're asking these basic because this
Yeah.
doesn't." And so she kept asking questions, and they were all prevaricating, and I would just step in and provide an answer, and at the break, a number of them came up to me and said, "Are you a coach?" I was about to say no, and I saw my girlfriend across the room staring daggers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was how I decided, "Okay, this I think is going to be the mechanism I'm going to use to find myself."
Mhm.
So I immediately went and registered myself into a coaching program so that I could get some kind of certification to be a coach because there are way too many people going, I'm a coach, I'm
I'm
a
a
coach.
coach. Yes.
And then I was like, but if you're going to be a coach, what's the framework you're going to use? And one of my former students had been telling me to write a book for years. And I needed something that I could center myself with. And so I'm like, you've made this decision that you're going to take on this coaching. So now you need a tool to assist you. Let's look at what writing can do. And I've always liked writing. My doctorate was easy because it was writing. So all I did was I took the research, and you and I've talked about this, taking research and applying that research to a real life
Real
situation
lives, right.
and then
Yes.
making it make sense. So I was like, you have almost 50 years worth of life experience. Let's use that. Let's
That's a
use
gem.
that to be the methodology. So I had a little purple laptop that I would sit in my bed every night and open it up and just start typing. I didn't think, I didn't edit, I just started typing. And I allowed the ancestors, quite frankly, to guide me because I didn't have a framework. Because normally when you're writing a book, you put a framework together. I didn't.
Yes.
As an aside, the first book I started writing was I started writing a book about what it was like to be a 50-year-old, Black woman who is an immigrant, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Interestingly, so another friend of mine who I went to school with, so she's Jamaican, but she's white Jamaican, but white Jamaicans are very different from white people from
Yes.
other places.
Yes.
So she had reached out to me and she goes, "Hey, Sue, I've written this book. Could you pre-purchase it for me, please?" And I said, "Sure." So I'd done that months before. God rest her soul. I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, Rach, I'm going to embark on this book thing. And so this is what I want to do." And she looked at me, and this is how I know that things happen that are divine. She looked at me and she said, "That's not the book you're going to write. Here's the book you're going to write." She said, "You
Mm.
are a Black woman who has achieved leadership in a world that's not designed for Black women." She goes, "I'm a white
Yes.
woman and I've been able to figure that out. So that's the book you're going to write."
I
And
love
she
it.
laid it out. As she was laying it out, I'm getting goosebumps because I'm like, this is not normal. And I understood that this was divine in how it was occurring. She had been given a message that she was handing to me. And she told me, she said, "I got a message for you. I'm going to give it to you the same way I got it." And so I was
Mm.
like, okay, which is weird, right? Because white woman. But
Yes.
tied to that,
Yes.
she was Jamaican.
She was Jamaican, so she
And she and I went to
understood.
high school together.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a history. So she has known me from I was 11 years old. There is a 30 odd year history that she was
Uh-huh.
bringing to me and saying, "I know who you've been and I have
Right.
traveled with you all through
Yeah.
this journey. Here it is that we are now at almost 50. And now you are coming to me and I'm going to tell you what it is that I think." So that is how that journey started. And then once that happened, the book just came. I didn't think about it. It flowed really naturally. So that is how that journey occurred. Anytime people ask me that question, I say, this was not my doing. This was a calling that was handed to me that I needed to just answer the call.
Oh, that is so powerful. And friends, aren't we lucky to have some amazing women that
Amazing.
journey alongside us from when we were little girls who have navigated that journey and help us to remember that the girl within us is still here. What does that mean to lead from that place? Not from the degrees, not from the titles, but from the beginning, the chills. I mean, it says everything.
It changes how you lead. It really does. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm a product of corporate America. I moved here when I was
Yes.
20 years old. So my entire professional life
Is in
has
the
been in
yes.
this country, the patriarchy of it all, the misogyny of it all, the misogynoir of it all. That's been my experience. So I don't know what the experience is of being a leader in the country that I was born in. That's not my experience. It's been here. And so what that experience did for me in early 2020, because this happened all in early 2020 before the pandemic. So you're talking about all of this is happening between January and March of 2020. So what it did for me was it made me lead differently because now I'm recognizing and seeing all these things about myself. In December, when my ex-husband and I made the decision to separate, I was adrift, literally adrift.
Mhm.
I like to think of myself as a highly intelligent woman who is very accomplished. And this is going to sound really bad. I'm watching all of these people that I think that I'm intellectually, emotionally more mature and stable.
Yes.
They're being
Yes.
successful in their marriage. I am failing.
Right. What does that
So
say about me?
that's a dichotomy, right? Because I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
here, but I can't get this thing to work. And
You
so
fix things. You
it
fix
does.
things.
And you
Yeah.
sit down and you go, what's wrong with me? Why is it I can't get this thing right? This is something that is supposed to be fundamentally female. I don't get why I'm not getting it right. And so navigating that and then, having this experience of the life coach, of doing the life coaching and having this conversation with Rachel, who told me the book I needed to write, and then sitting down and writing that book. What I realized was for many years, I had modeled my leadership after what white men did and how white men were successful. And I realized at that point that I needed to lead from a different place. I think some of it was there during my leadership journey, but I began to realize that I needed to lead from a more divine, feminine, Black female point of authenticity. It makes a huge difference.
It absolutely does, and I love that. I also wanna bump back to something that you said about, your entire career being in the US, because you said something in our first conversation that I've been turning over ever since. You said that Jamaica is deeply matriarchal,
Mhm.
but not obviously.
Not obvious.
And that Jamaican women are raised with this dual expectation to excel completely and to support quietly.
Mhm.
That the fight is quiet. I've
Mhm.
been thinking about that as a leadership framework, the quiet fight. Where did that come in? Where does that come from? What does it actually look like in practice?
I'm the product of a vice president of human resources. My mother,
Yes.
you're talking about a woman born in 1947.
Uh-huh.
By the time I was 10 years old, so my mother was 33 years old, my mother was already in leadership in an organization.
Wow.
So I was raised with seeing my mother with a business card and her name on a door. My father was a CEO. So I was
Mhm.
raised in a very corporate home. I was raised seeing a woman who was a boss. Always. My mom always looked well, dressed well. Everybody was like, Mrs. Morrison, Mrs. Morrison. So I was raised seeing a woman in power. My grandmother left Jamaica in 1952. So my grandmother is part of the Windrush generation for England. So
Okay.
she left Jamaica in 1952, left her three small children,
Uh-huh.
went to England, became a nurse, bought a house, then said to her husband, okay, it's time for you to come now and kind of benefit from what I've done. My grandfather, being a man, was like, no, I'm not going to go and live in a house that a woman bought. And they
Right.
ended up getting divorced and everything else. But that is the history of my life. I come from boss lady women, always. I come from women who have always accomplished it. My grandmother, Windrush generation, became a nurse, bought a house, took care of her three children. Even though she physically was in England, my mother would always say they were the best dressed and everything because my grandma was going to send a barrel to Jamaica to make sure
Yes.
her kids are taken care of. And the money is
Absolutely.
coming. So her kids had a lot of advantages, because even though my grandfather, was in the civil service, having money come from England is no small feat when you
It
have
is
that
not.
kind of resource.
Yes.
My entire life, I was around strong women. So if you imagine that my mom was a VP, so were all her friends.
Ah,
I was
yes.
surrounded by boss women always. So that's been the history of where I come from. I've always seen women in politics. Jamaica has had a female prime minister.
Yes.
So that is a history. Now, again, it's a dichotomy, right? Jamaican women are expected to be very well educated, very dignified, very poised, good looking, but you can cook, clean, wash, manage a house, and take care of your husband and your children. You have to be everything.
Everything.
Expectation is that you are everything. Being a wife and a mother does not take precedence over your being seen, heard, and professionally successful.
I'm thinking about the differences in the US experience and growing up, and there are very few Black women leaders, like leading companies, and we know what happened when we tried to vote our first Black woman as president. So you said something to me that was blunt, and I want to bring it here, that while Black women were doing the talking, Caribbean women were sliding through and running the company. You named that as a real dynamic, and then you immediately named the accountability that comes along with that. How do you hold both of those truths at the same time when the origins of what's visible for us are very different?
Remember, I told you that part of my journey in 2020 was
Yeah,
confronting my own
doing
stereotypes
your
and
own
bias.
work. Yeah, doing your deep work. Yes.
When you are an immigrant, you are told you come up here, You do the work that needs to be done and you shut up. In Jamaica, we have a word for shutting up called kiba. So we'll say kiba your mouth, which is shut up.
Kibble your mouth. I love it.
Particularly in the Jamaican community, what we learned is that you move in silence. Nobody knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
Caribbean people are seen to be very standoffish. We don't fraternize at work. You don't come to our house. You don't know very much about what's going on with us because we are taught move in silence. The
Mm-hmm.
more people know what you're doing is the more
The
roadblocks they can
blocks
put
you
in your
have
way.
along the way.
So
Yes.
we're also not too friendly with your work. We are cordial, but not friendly because there's a lack of trust. If we trust you, then you might cut us off to get to where we need to get to. And I'm going to be very honest. Any immigrant is going to tell you. Any immigrant, doesn't matter from what walk of life, from India, Africa, Pakistan, anywhere in the Caribbean, we will tell you we have one goal: to move forward so that the generation behind us is better than we are. And
Uh-huh.
so because of that, sometimes we do not understand the privilege that we are working with, and we will step on top of the people who created the framework for us in order for us to move forward. Any immigrant who's honest is going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that there's a privilege with being an immigrant and that we learned how to leverage that privilege to get to where we want to get to. Particularly when you come as young as I did, right? I came at 20. So I was
Yes.
still forming my personality. I think the
Sure.
first time I confronted that, I might have been 40.
Ah,
The first
all
time I
right.
confronted
Mm-hmm.
the privilege and
Mm-hmm.
how I had navigated that privilege, I might have been 40. So think about it. 20 years, I'm just rolling, rolling,
Just
just
doing,
rolling.
moving
Because guess
stealth.
what?
Yeah.
What I'm doing is getting me results, right?
Yes.
I was a dean. I was a program chair by the time I was 30. I was a dean by the time I was 35. I was a vice president by the time I was 39. So obviously what I'm doing is working. Why would I do anything different?
This is going to take some real courage to go publicly. You said something to me in our first conversation that is still sitting with me. When you open your mouth in a room full of white men, the accent shifts the dynamic. The same content that a Black woman, a Black American woman, has already said, when you say it, the room turns towards you. And you name that as a privilege. And you're talking about privilege now as a specific, particular privilege that comes with a specific, particular accountability. I want to sit with that with you because I think it's one of the most honest things that anyone says about how this works.
We all know the rule of divide and conquer, right?
Yes.
And so immigrants are expected to be good immigrants and Black immigrants are expected to be good Blacks.
Uh-huh.
So we have to sit with that. If I had $1 for every time a non-Black person has looked at me and I've spoken about the Black experience and they've said to me, but you're not really Black.
Ah,
And I'm sure you've heard this from other people.
I've heard it. I've heard it, yes.
You're not really Black. That was very concerning to me because I'm like, so what am I? They said, but I said, I'm not African American.
We're not black.
I said, I'm not African American. I said, because that is an ethnicity that has its own history and culture and everything. I said, but at the end of the day, I am Black. I'm phenotypically Black. I don't even have white features. So
Yeah,
I am unclear why
what you're
you would
talking
look at
about.
this phenotypically Black woman, big forehead, big, my grandmother was from a different culture, so I have that shaped eyes, but my nose, my mouth, everything about me, my physically, if you see me, I am the quintessential Black woman. Every time a Nigerian sees me, they go, "Oh, my Yoruba sister." I'm like, pretty much, right?
Right.
So what is it about me that says that I'm not Black? And really what it is the system that has been set up that says that immigrants get to come in and benefit from what African Americans have built. And what we're going to do is treat these immigrants differently and perpetuate the story that African Americans are not earning or not doing the right things to move forward, but the immigrants are. And so they will allow you to move in ways that they do not allow African Americans to move in an organization. There is not a single immigrant who, if they're honest, will not tell you that. We are treated differently. And again, remember I told you, I began realizing at around 40, I'm like, because at 40, I became a VP.
Mhm.
So now I was sitting in a room. I'm the only Black person in the room, and I'm not the only female, but I'm the only Black person in the room. And I would notice that they would take what somebody would like, somebody else would make a comment, like a Black program chair or somebody would make a comment. and they would dismiss it. And I would be like, I would take that comment, distill it, and bring it back to the room and put a bunch of corporate speak around it. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, that sounds good. And I'm like, oh, so that's the kind of time we're on. Okay, got it.
In my work, I talk about these compliments. It's just like, oh, someone saying that, or you're not really Black. These compliments as handcuffs. The way that Black women are often praised for their endurance or their grace in systems that are actively working against them,
Mhm,
and how that praise functions to keep us in service of those systems. What you're describing sounds related to that, the
mhm.
accent as a kind of privilege that can function in the same way if you're not careful. So, how do you stay accountable to using that door?
I think I first realized it when I was in college, but I didn't acknowledge it. I don't think I had the framework to really understand what was happening. So the first time it happened in college is because when all of us are in a room, nobody knows who is who, right? Because it's just Black people in a room. No, as Jamaicans, we like to say that we can tell a Jamaican a mile away that, there's something distinctive about us. But at the end of the day, if you put 20 of us in a room and they're all Black, you don't know what anybody is. You
Right.
have no clue. But what I would notice is that when things were happening or conversations were being had, it still happens. If I'm in a space today and like at a conference and questions are being asked and I start answering a question, the entire room will swivel and look at me. And then afterwards, it's like, oh, where are you from? I love your
Right.
accent. It's become a lot more civil now, but before it was the backhanded compliment that was really a dig. You speak so well. You're so eloquent because the expectation is that you can't. So if you use SAT words, in a sentence,
Yes.
or you have cogent thought and you're able to take a point from beginning to end with examples and citations, all of a sudden it throws the narrative. And so the narrative is she's not Black because that disturbs their entire thought process. So she can't be Black. So we have to tie her level of intelligence to the
To
fact like
something
she's an
else.
immigrant, she's
Immigrant.
an
Yeah.
other. Because don't
Yes.
get me wrong, you're still an other.
Right. But a different type of other.
But they're
Yes.
different kind of other. And so I think for many of us who have been here for a while and experienced it, what we realized was it wasn't a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cudgel that's being used against you while making you feel good about yourself.
Right.
Once you understand that look, you need to not do that. But you ask me, how do I keep myself accountable? Consciously. Think about it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
It is the conscious process of that. And I have told many a white person to their face the story I just told you. When they start talking, I said, yeah, I always find it fascinating when, people start coming up to me and telling me that I'm not Black because I'm very confused by that. That throws people off. It throws people off when you have that conversation because that's not where they expect you to come. But that is my way of keep myself accountable. Also, to point out to the person who is perpetuating the foolishness, because I told you I'm Jamaican, I don't like foolishness. You're perpetuating the foolishness to say, I see you, I see where you're coming from. And at my big age, I am no longer going to participate in it because guess what? I participated in it enough in my youth. In my old age, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah, the divide and conquer is real, and till we think about how we participate and keep that system endured, there's some responsibility that we all have. But I want to come into the present with you because one of the things I find most compelling about you is that you refuse to be one thing. You started off as a life coach and decided you hated it. You moved to BIPOC women's leadership coaching and then to success coaching. You spent 20 years running schools and then you moved to the library consortium. You are still evolving in 2026, and you said so directly. And I want to name what I see underneath that. Not instability, not indecision. What I see is a leader who is in constant relationship with what she actually needs to give and what she can sustain. And how do you tell the difference between a pivot and a pattern?
So I want to talk a little bit about where I am right now. And
Yes.
then you can ask me some questions based on that. So
Okay.
I have not had a client all of 2026. I did not create any goals for 2026, which is very weird, right? For somebody who coaches and does all of that.
Uh-huh.
I usually have my goals laid out, I usually do a vision board, I do all of that. I didn't do one in 2026 because I realized that I'm in flux.
Mm.
Something is going to be changing, and I'm not really certain what it is, but I know it's
Yeah.
changing. And I know what I have to do when that's happening is just sit in it.
Uh-huh.
until it appears. So I had a great year in 2025. I did
Hmm.
podcasts. I did a couple live speaking engagements on a long-term client, which I've, wrapped up her work now. And I took on two short-term clients. So we did that. The difference between a life coach is that life coaches are working in all segments of people's lives.
Yes.
That's exhausting in my mind.
Hmm.
Success coach, I'm coming in to ask you very specific things. What is the thing that you're looking for? And so there has to be a particular goal, a particular thing you're trying to reach. Usually it is professional that somebody's trying to get to. So my goal is how to get you to be successful at that thing. So it's a very narrowed focus. And I
Okay.
think that worked better for me than taking on your entire life because I'm not qualified to do all of that. And some people's lives are very messy and it's too much.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's been a very, very narrow focus. But myself, so that's kind of what I did. So I was doing all of that in 2025. And in 2026, I've ground it to a halt.
Hmm.
2 weeks ago, I recognized why. 2 weeks ago, I was meeting with another Black woman.
Hmm.
I said to her, I feel like this is where I should be. I feel I need to
Yes.
be teaching women particular things. And I can't find the avenue or the venue to do it. And I need to figure out how to get to that avenue and venue. And because of my current role, I'm not out and about the way I used to be when I was in academia. So I don't have the same kind of access points.
Yes.
And she just looked at me and she smiled and she said,
Hmm.
here's how we're going to do it. And so she and I started to have conversations. So right now we are planning a conference, a work-related conference that she and I are partnering on. But she said to me, she says, the minute you go out there and start talking, the business will come.
The business will come.
And I went, okay.
You said something I want to name out loud that you narrowed. And I'm holding that that is not a limitation. It is self knowledge as a leadership practice.
You cannot do all things all the time and be good at it.
You can't be what other people believe you should be because it's working for them. How long did it take you to give yourself permission to sort of set that boundary? Was it just in 2025, 2026?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
So I started coaching in 2019, 2020. And by the time we got to 2024, I was like, this isn't working for me.
Mm,
I have to do something different. One of the things that I do, which is probably not a good thing, is when something isn't working, I just pull all the way back.
mm.
Literally, I just pull all the way back and go, this isn't working. It's not. I need to stop. Because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again.
Over
And
and over again and getting the same results.
so once I realize it's not working, I just stop. You don't drop clients or you do anything like that, right? You wrap up everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't take on anything more that keeps you bounded in.
Exactly. People have been hounding me, you need to write the second book. I haven't been led to write a second book yet. I don't know what the second book is going to be about. I need to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And I think what helped me to do the narrowing as well is the role I have now as chief academic officer, at a library consortium is a very narrowed role of the vast amount of work I did in academia. Because when you run schools in academia, you're in charge of everything, right?
Everything. Accountable for everything. Yes.
There was a president and a CFO and all of that, but you're responsible for input to the budget and
Yes.
sticking to the budget. You're responsible for hiring. You're responsible for firing. You're responsible for meeting deadlines and targets. You're responsible for a lot of things. It's exhausting.
It is.
It's lovely when you want to do it. But, when I took on this role, my boss allowed me to write my job description, which was the best thing.
It's such a great place to be.
I've told him, I said, they're going to take me out of this job in a box, in a pine
Yeah.
box when I'm leaving. Because this is where I plan to close my professional career, my
Career. Yes.
professional 9 to 5 careers, where I plan to close it here. He allowed me to take the parts of my job I love the best.
Mhm.
So I love process and procedure. Accreditation is a lot about process and procedure. I love that. I love training. Love it. I get to conceptualize and create training and deliver it. I love meeting people. I get to go to the conferences and represent the company and do that. I get to change the trajectory of the company. There's a new division that we're starting. I get to help lead that division. That's exciting to me. That's what I want to do. The sliver of the work that I enjoy doing in academia allows me to now blossom in my 9 to 5. And I think because I've been given permission to do that in my 9 to 5, being able to do it in my side hustle was that much easier.
It was so much easier. Yeah, you're not doing it under the radar. Oh, that is so, so great. You are sitting at the intersection of all of these identities, the academic, the coach, the author, the Jamaican woman, the mother, of an amazing son, the woman who brought herself a ring during COVID that said, I am enough. Which version of Dr. Sue do you most need your listeners to meet today?
But I'm all of those people, right?
You are.
So the version that they're meeting today is the 2026 version, which is the woman who has understood that the person that I am today is an amalgamation of all the other people that I have become.
Yeah.
So Michelle Obama says, wrote her, has her book, I Am Becoming. And I think that all of us need to embrace that phrase because, and as Kamala said, you didn't drop out of a coconut tree. You are a product of everything. And woman I am today is a product of everything. It is a product of that small child that was raised in Jamaica with all of those island principles that I brought to this country that I had to then amend and shift and move to the new reality because you cannot operate in the same colonialized mentality that we had when I was growing up, because trust me, we were very colonialized. And so I
Yes.
had to shift that. Then there was the young professional who was struggling to become and find out who she wanted to be. And I'm still working on what is the version of myself that I want to be next. Because I told you, she hasn't come yet. She gonna
She
come
hasn't come.
later this year, right?
She on her way. You
Right?
getting ready. She
So
getting
there's all of
ready.
that. Then there's a young girl who got married, who thought it was my job to make my husband the best that he could be without ever thinking what his responsibility was to me. So there's that woman who evolved and said, no, you are responsible for being the best version of yourself. And I'm responsible for being the best version of myself. And together we make each other the best version of ourselves. There's that person. Then there's the mom who is the mom of an ASD son who, just recently, I got a text message that says, oh, by the way, I'm going to have dental surgery. Don't worry about it. I figured out how to get it paid for and already have a drive to and from the dentist. You don't have to worry about it. Sir, who is
I
this
love that.
50-year-old adult that I raised? So there is
Yeah.
that person that,
Yes.
that did that. Then there's this person that navigated divorce. And then there's person who is navigating the dating field. Don't date. There's a lot of work. It's a minefield out there. Then there's that, the single 55-year-old woman.
Yes.
I go into the dating pool every year and then come out. But there's also that woman who doesn't need a life partner,
Mhm.
but wouldn't mind having a companion. So it makes dating very easy for me. If I meet somebody and he's great, great. If I don't, it's not a big deal. I'm going to do what I
Right.
can do. There is that
Right.
person. And then there is the chief academic officer. There's a C-suite person that is operating. All of those people exist in this 5'5" frame. All of them
At the same time.
at the same time, and you are constantly pulling at those pieces and bringing them out whenever needed. I do a lot of coaching with my team. I have nine librarians who work for me, and I always joke because I'm not a librarian and they don't play one on TV, but I coach these 9 women, and these 9 women I coach based on my life experience.
Oh, I love
I
that.
look
I
at
love
where
that.
they are. Even some of them are young. I had one, she actually moved out of state, but she was a mom of 2 ASD kids and she was struggling. I said, okay, as an ASD mom, here's what you do. So you take a lot of your personal life experience to help the people that you are mentoring, working with, in order for them to become the best versions of themselves. I am a servant leader. My job
Yes.
is to clear out roadblocks and make a way for you to be successful. I am perfectly okay with you standing on my shoulders to get to where you need to get to. I do not think that the pie is a finite pie. There is enough
Right.
for everybody.
To go around. Yes, I love that.
The person that I am today is a lot more open, a lot more generous, a lot more giving because I felt so much was poured into me. For me to be here, I think it is my obligation to pour into others to get them where they need to be because I am perfectly happy and content with where I am. That's a place of privilege. Be happy and content with where you are so that you can look around and go, who can I help next?
I love that. And one thing that my research has taught me that as Black women, we can do it all, but not at the same time. And we certainly can't do it alone.
No, we can't. And I think it is
Yeah.
the one thing that is awesome about us. And we keep
Yes.
showing it over and
Over and
over
over
again.
again.
Despite the diaspora wars,
Yes.
when it
Yes.
matters, we are fully cohesive. We understand, we have a kind of ancestral understanding of who we are and what
Right.
we're capable of. We look at all other Black women and we see the divine feminine in them. And we go, you don't have to do this alone, my sister. I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to adjust your crown when it needs to be adjusted. I'm going to boost you up. And when you're ready, I'm going to let you go. And I'll slide back to be in the background. It is something that we do without thought.
because back to that Ubuntu principle, I see you, I love you because I'm you. So powerful, so amazing. There's just something that I love about Caribbean women, and it's not just the accent, but it is the care. It is the extra love and care around community that unfortunately in the US we have been stripped of in our formative years as our responsibility.
I think one of the things that saddens me about that I didn't recognize until very recently is Black people in the Caribbean, even though all of us, were brought over from someplace, right?
Yes, yes,
Black people in the Caribbean have a sense of cohesiveness. So,
yes.
Jamaican, they're Jamaican. A
Mhm.
Trinidadian, they're Trini. Bahamians, they're Bahamian. There is an ethnic culture that they cling to. Nobody asks them where they came from.
Right.
Nobody cares. And that's the reason why Caribbean, you see that level of community. No,
Yes.
Jamaicans go fight with the other people about whose curry goat is better and who has better
Right.
curry chicken and whether or
Right.
not curry chicken or chicken. We're going to have those internal kind of things.
Yes.
But if you come after one island in the Caribbean, everybody coming for you.
Right.
And when I moved to the States, what I understood was that because it didn't happen here the same way, there was a
Mhm.
conscious effort to break apart community, conscious effort.
Yes.
And African Americans have been fighting for 400 years to bring it back together. And every time they bring it back together, something
Something
comes
happens.
to dispel
Blow
it.
it apart.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, part of what has come to dispel it is us.
Yeah. By
I refer
design.
Yeah, I refer to my son as African American. That's how I refer to him because the last time I checked, he was born in Coral Springs Medical, which is in United States.
Yes.
I've had people look at me and say, "He's not African American, he's Black of Jamaican descent." And I said, "No, he's not." I said, "He doesn't know anything about Jamaica." Well, he
Mhm.
visits to go back but he's an American, and that's what he needs to understand and learn. It's even the community he's being a part of, trying to tell him he's not a part of that
That part of
community.
that community.
He
Yes.
is.
Yes.
He is. He may have two, but he is. I am more cognizant of that now in the last 6 years than ever before. My
Yeah.
responsibility to, in my little corner of the world, what can I do to bring the diaspora together?
Yes. Yeah. And it just takes a couple of us a little bit at a time to doing our own work,
Yeah,
understanding that when we solve for the most impacted, then everyone benefits. And when
everybody
Black
benefits.
women are doing well, we all do well. And that's
Well,
the problem, right? They want to teach us that we don't deserve to do well or be well. Or if one group of us does, then that means the other group can't. And we know better.
you would think that empirical data would show every time we try to drag these people to hell, they simply rise.
Yes.
And not only do we rise, we then turn around and grant grace to the
Yes.
people who took us down. And I want for everybody to understand that there's a reason that this is happening.
Yes.
We are ancestral beings and we travel with that level of ancestral history. We understand how important we are to the perpetuation of the earth. So we will never do anything to destroy it. You will try to destroy us. And we are going to look at you and go, son, daughter,
Not today. Not today.
or tomorrow. And what seems to others as if we've been defeated, it's simply us pulling back
Yeah.
and then moving forward again.
For
Because
a
I think that
comeback.
is the
Yeah.
greatest frustration that they have, that they never seem to be able to best us, ever,
Right.
ever. And that fact that we can, look at you and go, okay, hon, all right.
Mhm. So this is what we gonna do. All right. Dr. Sue, this is what we do in every episode of Revolutionary Leadership. We pull out the blueprint, the actual framework underneath everything that we have shared today. 3 principles, and we are going to name them together. So, what I am sitting with is principle 1, your story, your history, all the versions of you are your anchor in times of transition or crisis, divorce, career disruption, COVID, whatever the season, returning to you, your original self, is not a regression. It is the most strategic move you can make. Dr. Sue, you did not write Boss Lady Ship to launch a brand. She wrote it to find her footing. And in finding her footing, she built something that thousands of us Black women now stand on. That is the architecture. Dr. Sue, in one sentence, what does that principle mean from where you are sitting right now?
Boss leadership is about women supporting women.
Yes. Yes.
It's about women supporting women. We stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us.
Absolutely.
If we are standing on the shoulders of women who came before us, then we must be okay with women standing on
Sitting
ours.
on our shoulders. Yes. Principle 2, privilege demands accountability. Whatever door opens for you because of your accent, your education, your background, your position in the room, the question is not whether to walk through it. The question is what you do once you're inside. Dr. Sue has been coaching this truth for years, that the ability to be heard in rooms where others is not a reward, it is a responsibility. And the measure of your leadership is where you use that hearing to advocate for those who are still being silenced. What does that responsibility look like in practice from your specific position?
There are almost every job that I've gotten because somebody said my name to somebody else. My name was called in a room that I was not in.
Wasn't not in, yes.
So again, it is my responsibility to call names of people in rooms that I'm not in. I am about to be part of a conference where my name isn't being mentioned at all, at
Mhm.
all.
Mhm.
But what I'm going to do with that experience is pull people into an experience who need exposure to that experience, but will never get that exposure because of what they look like. But I also understand that what I look like is a hindrance, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be quiet about it. So you quietly just underpin a principle, a philosophy, and a movement, and you allow other people to get involved in that because you don't need the accolade and you don't need the praise. You just need the outcome.
The outcome, right.
That's how I hold myself accountable.
And principle 3, evolution is a requirement, not a failure. Pivoting from your coaching focus, your career trajectory, your entire professional identity, that is not indecision. It's a sign that you have outgrown the space that no longer serves your purpose. Dr. Sue moved from life coaching to leadership coaching to success coaching. She moved from higher education institutions to a library consortium, and she created her own job description. And every move was not a departure from who she is, it was a more precise expression of it. Evolution is the leadership practice. What would you say to women who are in the middle of a pivot right now and cannot yet see where it's going?
So I'm going to tell a story. Humor me with this a little bit because I'm
Sure.
going to use a word that we don't like to use, and it's a F word, and it's the word failure. And people are always afraid of that word, right? Because people think that a pivot is a failure. I love everything that you've said about what a pivot is, but for the people who still think pivot is a failure, I want to share something. You actually learn more from failure than you do success. You learn way more. And here's what we don't realize. When you fail at something, your brain literally begins to rewire itself. Your brain says, which is basic neuroscience, your brain says, I did this and it didn't work. I need it to work. So let me create some new neural pathways for this to work. Your brain literally begins to find alternate solutions to get to the outcome. Our job is to do what our brain is telling us to do and begin to look for new avenues for you to get to the outcome you want to get to. I bring this up because many people think, to your point, that when you change direction about something, or when you fail at something, perceived fail at something, that that is somehow a bad thing. It's not always. Rejection is redirection.
Right.
So for me, the ability to sit in the shift and the change and the pivot, what did I learn from this? What is the outcome I'm looking for? And how do I get there? So as a success coach, I ask 3 questions of my clients. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And is your current course of action taking you there?
I
Those are
love
only
that.
3 questions. So every year I ask myself those same questions.
Yes.
And that's why at the beginning of this year, I stopped because my current course of action was not taking me to the outcome I wanted. So that means I need to stop because I now need to figure what is my next pivot.
I love that. And I want to share something with our listeners before we close this segment. These three principles, anchoring, accountability, evolution, are at the heart of the work I've been building for 20 years. And they're in my book, Revolutionary Leadership, a Power Playbook for Black Women, publishes August the 4th, 2026 through Entrepreneur Books of Forbes imprint. Pre-sales are open right now at revolutionarylead.com. And Dr. Sue, you endorsed this book. I want to give you a moment to say what you saw in it.
Well, I think I said to you, I saw a lot of myself. That does help to identify. I'm like, oh, she started where I ended.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
so much of myself in there. And I think that's important, right? Because when we read novels, we envision ourselves as a heroine, right? Or the hero
Yes,
or the
yes,
protagonist.
yes,
We envision ourselves in that. And that's what makes the story connect with us or to us because we see ourselves taking that journey. And as I was reading it, I was sitting at my desk going, yes.
yes,
'Cause I saw so much of myself in there, and I'm like, "Oh my god, and she's a nerd like me because she wants to
yes,
get the research and put the research
yes,
in the book."
yes,
So much it's the identification, and that's why I said to you, "Can I write what I want to write, and then you take it and say what you wanna say?" I wanted you to know that there's another little black girl, there's another little brown girl
yes,
who read your book and saw herself in that book. And
yes,
that is important because we need representation. The fact that I'm an author is fine, but seeing myself in somebody else's book is
yes.
like, feel seen and recognized. So yeah, I'm a bit of I'm fangirling, ignore me.
I love it. I love it. Fangirl away, fangirl away. I so appreciate your reading and more so your heartfelt endorsement and that you saw yourself in it because it's based on Black women across the world and the playbook for our
Yeah,
success.
you put yourself in. It was like all of your experiences when my book came out. The fact that there were pictures of me in the book and the fact that I talk so much about myself, I cannot tell you how many reviews said she talks so much about herself. Who else am I supposed to talk about?
I know myself more than anybody else, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm like, this is how I got to where I'm getting to. I'm just giving you my experience. There's always somebody who has something to say. So it was me reading your experiences. And I love to share other people's experiences, right? We like to read biographies because we want to see what other people's lives are like.
Yes.
And
Yes.
seeing you navigate that. And then what I loved as well was the blueprint that you gave as well. Because I had done that in my book as well, but I had done my blueprint up to a point and
Yes.
then stopped. And you picked that blueprint up and took it even further. And I'm like, yeah. And you are writing yours post COVID because where we are in because you wrote your book in 2025. So where we are in 2025 is not where we were in 2020, a
Right.
whole different world. So,
Or
and
even 15 years before when I first started to do the research. So a update was definitely needed.
I enjoyed the journey.
Thank you so much for that. For listeners, identify a privilege you hold, whether it's your background, your education, your voice, your accent, your position, and ask yourself, how am I using it this week to amplify someone else's contribution, not occasionally? For organizations, look for your leadership pipeline and ask whether you are rewarding a narrow, Western defined of executive presence or whether you are genuinely creating space for the quiet fight, the different framework, the woman who builds differently than the model you inherited. Diversity is not just who is in the room, it is whose architect gets to matter. For emerging professionals, where are you waiting for permission? Whether it is your hair, your accent, your outside of the box ideas, or the pivot you know you need to make, identify one thing you have been holding back and decide today to let it breathe. The room does not need to get to decide when you're ready. You do. Dr. Sue, thank you for the honesty about what writing actually does when the world is asking too much of us. Thank you for naming the privilege of the accent and the accountability it demands. Thank you for refusing to be one thing and for showing us that evolution is not a failure but a practice. And thank you for the words on the book. It means everything. Listeners, you can connect with Dr. Sue on LinkedIn at Dr. Suzanne Morrison-Williams and at drsuespeaks.com. Everything is linked in the show notes. Dr. Sue did not write Boss Lady Ship to put something in the world. She wrote it to find herself in the middle of everything the world was asking of her. And in that return to self, the little girl who started the journey, she built something that hundreds of thousands of Black women need right now. She also gave us something rarer, the honest accountability of what privilege actually costs, that accent that opens doors, that accountability to hold those doors, the responsibility to use every room you walk into as infrastructure for the women who are still outside. And she reminds us that the pivot you are in right now, the one that feels like failure, like uncertainty, like starting over, may not be a departure from who you are. It may be the most precise version of you yet. That's the blueprint. And to our listeners, I want to hear from you. Connect with me on social media at Revolutionary Lead and visit revolutionarylead.com. Tell me, what is your quiet fight? What part of your origin story are you finally ready to stop hiding and start leading from? And where in your life are you waiting for the room to give you permission that you already earned? Find me, tell me, because your story is tomorrow's blueprint. And if you're ready to go deeper than inspiration, I want the framework, the research, and the strategy. My book, Revolutionary Leadership, a Power Playbook for Black Women, publishes August the 4th through Entrepreneur Books, a Forbes imprint. Pre-sales are open now at Revolutionary Lead. And if your organization is ready for the work, K&B Consultancy is built for this exact moment. Visit revolutionarylead.com to learn more. And now for my favorite part of the show. This is where women share their experience with my teachings.
I would like to say thank you because you are inadvertently a part of my journey this year, aren't you?
I am.
Nothing happens by happenstance. The fact that we have a mutual colleague who decided that we needed to connect, and the fact that we needed to connect now.
Yes.
This is a man that has known me for 15 years, if not longer. So the fact that he said, I need you to connect with her now, when I am in the middle of going through my own shift and transition, is not an accident. Because we've had a couple of conversations. So I want to thank for the conversations that we've had, because those are also part of my continued evolution and journey. And I am not blind to the fact that this is happening for a reason. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing your brilliance, your compassion, and your commitment to Black women, leading with power, ease, and strategy. Thank you for listening to Revolutionary Leadership. If today's conversation sparked something in you, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share this episode with another change maker in your life. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, joy, and revolution.